Hello and welcome back to the KCC channel. I'm Rob and I hope you are having a wonderful day today. Today, I have a single story for you from the JustNoHOA subreddit. Let's jump right in. This story comes to us from Knock on Wood HOA. HOA president vandalized my truck and had it towed away to have a junkyard dismantle it. They were forced to fully repair it, and I sued the HOA president. This incident happened in January of this year. Last year, I moved into a neighborhood with an optional HOA. At the time, I'd come into enough money to buy a house outright. The only reason I moved here is because the HOA was optional, and it's a nice, safe neighborhood. It's a slice of heaven compared to where I used to live. I own two vehicles, a 2004 Toyota Camry and a 1999 Ford F-150. The Camry is my daily driver, while the F-150 is my hauler for when I need it. I bought the truck around the same time I bought the house to help with the move, and I used it to pull a rented trailer when I was moving my stuff in. The F-150 is old, but in good mechanical order. And I try to keep both of my vehicles clean with monthly trips through a car wash. The local HOA did not like me from the start due to my refusal to join. The HOA president was a retired old man who seemed like he had nothing better to do. So he tried multiple times to sell me on joining and sent me several applications in the mail. But I always declined, politely at first. But when the president got more aggressive, I told him to shove it where the sun doesn't shine. That's when the HOA decided that I was a member anyway and started sending me fines in the mail with that claim. I knew they were bogus, so I went to the next HOA meeting to dispute the fines. They tried to tell me that by living here, I'm in the HOA whether I liked it or not. This was an obvious power move and something I was ready for. I could only laugh in amazement of their stupidity and said as much to them. Then told the board that not only was I not a member, but I'd gotten a lawyer to write up a cease and desist for them. I handed the envelope over, the board skimmed it, then furiously told me to get out. The fine stopped for a few months, then started right back up again at random. So I popped into another HOA meeting and told them this was not legal. I'm not in their HOA, and I'd take them to court if they didn't stop. And once again, I was furiously told to get out. The fine stopped for good, but the HOA president decided I needed to be made an example of. It happened only a few days later. I came home to find my F-150 gone from my driveway. I checked my cameras and saw the HOA president himself walk onto my property. He took out a pocket knife and stabbed each of my truck's tires in the sidewalls. Then unscrewed the license plates off, put them in a bag, and just casually walked away with them. Then, a little while later, a tow truck came and hauled my truck away. I called the police, and together we went to see the HOA president, but he wasn't home. With my situation explained, this was not considered a civil matter, but grand theft auto. The police traced the tow truck as being from a local junkyard and not from an impound lot. I accompanied the police there. Not only was the HOA president present at the junkyard, but my F-150 was there being taken apart by about 4 men. They'd already removed the headlights, hood, bumper, radiator, and all of the panels off the front of the truck by the time we'd gotten there. There was stuff disconnected all over the engine bay, and the catalytic converters had already been cut out. The HOA president looked like a deer in the headlights when he saw me there with police. I was nearly angry beyond words when I saw my truck in that condition. Nearly, I say, because I went off like a foul-mouthed country sailor on the people who had ripped my truck apart. The HOA president was caught red-handed, but insisted he'd only towed my truck because it was in a sorry state and looked abandoned. I said he illegally took it off my private property since the HOA had no right to tow off my land, and he clearly had not been aware of my cameras as they'd seen everything he did. He went pale at first, then furiously tried to stomp towards me, looking like he was ready for a fight while yelling my truck had been an eyesore, so he got rid of it. This action earned him some new bracelets and a free ride to the station. The police were somewhat merciful to the junkyard staff, who claimed to have only been doing their jobs. The owner of the junkyard is a cousin to the HOA president, so he was contracted to do any towing for the HOA since he also owned a local impound. He had no idea I wasn't a member of the HOA, and also was not aware his cousin had ordered his employees to tear my truck apart for parts as an abandoned vehicle. The police cited all sorts of broken laws to the employees and owner, and they agreed to put my truck back together. But I said that it had better be at least as good as it was, if not better, or I'd be going to my lawyer. The owner told his employees to do whatever it takes, or he'd separate them from their jobs. Then told me he'd bill the HOA president for everything later. Then the police and I got to watch as all of those employees had to painstakingly put my truck back together piece by piece. And they repeatedly muttered things about me to each other and flashed me the stink eye from time to time. I'm guessing the HOA president offered to bribe them all to take my truck apart as quickly as possible. But now they had to fix it for free, and they were at it for hours. They had to weld the catalytic converters back in and even had to replace some parts entirely due to damage caused during hasty disassembly. When they first fired up the engine, it had an obvious misfire. They denied it, but police sided with me that they could tell it had a misfire too. Turns out, they ruined one of the coil packs taking the truck apart, and they had to order new parts from a nearby auto parts store to fix it. One of the headlights also stopped working. Again, something that they had to fix, because I stated I could prove with my home cameras that they were both working when I last drove it, and the bulbs were nearly brand new LEDs, so they had to have broken something. The coolant lines had also been just cut instead of simply disconnected, probably because they were trying to take the truck apart in a hurry. So those were more parts that had to be ordered from the nearby store as well. I can only imagine the total cost that was billed to the HOA president for this. All 4 of the tires had to be replaced because they were not repairable, so they had to leave the truck on a lift and take all 4 wheels off. There were other problems too, and all of these junkyard mechanics had to work overtime to put the truck back together on the hopes I wouldn't sue or press charges. I wasn't even able to take the truck home till the next day evening, because the police had to get my plates back, and the junkyard staff had to take the wheels in for new tires. By the time I got the truck back, the 2 junkyard employees I saw there gave me looks that just said not to come back. And the truck actually runs better than before, so I essentially got a free sorta overhaul for my trouble. As for the HOA president, well, I did sue him for trespassing, theft, destruction of property, and the illegal tow. He ended up paying his cousin for all of my truck repairs, lost his position in the HOA, and moved out of the neighborhood shortly after losing the lawsuit, because he had no leg to stand on in court, since everything was caught on CCTV. He pretty much surrendered to the asked for settlement, which is why it didn't get drawn out. The HOA has not bothered me at all since the truck incident, and my neighbors love me for getting rid of the old HOA president, as he was a power-tripping narcissist to them all, and kept issuing pointless fines that had to be regularly disputed. Also, I have been back to that junkyard for parts, but for my Camry instead, as I went to pull a replacement grille for it, and found one in excellent shape there. They did recognize me and gave me dirty looks, but otherwise didn't bother me. Jumping down to the comment section on this one, there's one from a user called HOA Blower. It says, if it was optional, was it a neighborhood association? Most HOAs are mandatory as they run with the land, unless they were trying to annex you. Either way, kudos on blowing their HOA. OP responded to this one and said, from what I know, the HOA was originally set up as a volunteer association, probably to make it look more appealing. so that system remained for whatever reason. But they slowly got almost everyone else in the neighborhood to join. I'm told the HOA was actually pretty good until the current board took over. However, them booting out the president I sued effectively neutered them. And I'm betting the board will all get replaced since the current president that was elected after the last one was kicked out is way nicer. The rest of the board are old fat cats, and several of my neighbors have told me that they want to replace them in the next board election, which is happening soon. HOA Blower responded to OP's comment and said, "Why replace when you can dissolve the HOA? Just do it. Plant the idea." OP responded to this one and said, "Believe me, I've heard that idea may be floating around, but since I'm not in the HOA, I'm not kept in the know about most details. But whatever happens, I'll try to update about it as the board elections are only weeks away." Okay, I might be missing something here because I don't know the laws where these people live, but Grand Theft Auto, having the vehicle taken to a junkyard and dismantled, but in the first place, doing destruction of property and slashing all the tires, why isn't the HOA president in jail? Because where I live, that would be a court date and definitely some jail time. Grand Theft Auto's not taken lightly, and in this case, the HOA president had no right to take the vehicle. That is Grand Theft Auto, and that guy should be sitting in a jail cell. Check out OP, linked in the description down below. I thank you for watching. I hope you have a wonderful day, and we'll see you tomorrow.